Hello everyone, my name is Amanda and I'm a librarian here at the South Cobb Regional Library. Although I'm in the meeting room right now, so we don't look a lot like a library, but thank you for coming to July's Craftspiration video. Today we'll be making some really fun coasters. I call them whimsical coasters. In the description, I don't know if you'll think they're whimsical or not, but I really like how they turned out, and you can use these techniques to make something that you could classify as whimsical. So I'll go ahead and I'll preview the coasters that we'll be making today, and we'll get started, and I hope you'll stay around and you'll make the craft. All right. Here is one of the coasters that I made, and you can see there's a few different techniques that I've used. Here's the other one, and these techniques are used in different ways to create different effects, and you can adapt these to make whatever it is you want. And all right, let's go ahead and get started. The first technique that I'm going to show you how to decorate your coasters is to create a fun kind of oil alcohol art effect. And if you do this on a ceramic coaster, you can get some really interesting fun swirling. And we're not going to get quite the same effect because we're using paper for our decorations and we have the cork coasters, but I'll go ahead and show you and you can try this out if you want. So all you want to do is create some sort of pattern. You can just do basic dots and just make sure you're covering an area that is as large as your coaster or whatever part of your coaster you want covered. So I am going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I went ahead and I finished drawing my geometric pattern onto this book page, and I used a book page because they tend to be thin enough that you get lots of smear and the ink really works its way through the page. But you don't have to use book pages. You can use any sort of paper or other materials to get this effect as well. It'll just look a little different. So the next step that we're going to do is you're just going to take your paintbrush and you're going to dip it into the alcohol and cover all of your design with the alcohol, letting it really work through the marker lines. And I will finish this up and I'll be right back. Coating my entire design, and when you're dropping the alcohol on there, you're going to want to make sure you use a lot and cover the entire area so that the ink will really get the chance to dissolve and soften. And as you're working, you might find that certain colors will bleed more and get more of a swirled, streaky effect than others. But that's something you can test out and you experiment. And if you really have your heart set on doing a certain design on a certain page or of a book or on a certain color of paper and you'll have a lot of it, you might want to just test that in a small area beforehand. And so now what you're going to want to do is just let your page dry, and I'll be right back when that's done. Okay, as you can see here, my geometric pattern has gotten the chance to dry, and since we're using rubbing alcohol, these actually dry pretty quickly, but I let mine dry overnight just to make sure that there was no residual moisture in them, but yours don't have to dry that long if you don't want to. And I also did some other patterns as well, and one thing that I really like that you can do is to just sort of highlight certain parts of a printed picture. So I did that on this one, and really sort of makes things pop and makes them look interesting. So once you've finished your drawing and you let them dry, you should be sure to check out the page at the bottom because it might have some really fun effects that you'd like to use instead. But once you've picked out the image that you're planning to use, the next step that you're going to want to do is take your coaster and line it up on top of your image and then trace it with a pen or a pencil, and then you can just cut that out. So I will go ahead and do that, and I will be right back. And so once you have cut out the shape you're planning to use for your coaster, you're going to just want to glue that onto the coaster backing. And I recommend using dishwasher safe Mod Podge to do this, but if you don't have access to that, you can just use regular glue and it'll still turn out pretty well. You'll just need to be a little more careful with how much you get water on it. And if you can cut your corners and your edges out perfectly, if you have some rough spots, you don't need to worry about that too much. You can clean that up after it's been dry using an X-Acto knife, or you can create a frame to hide sort of spots that you don't want to have shown. And I will show you how to do a frame when we do the next step. So I am going to go ahead and glue this on here, and I will show you what it looks like when we get done with all the other techniques. Okay, the second technique I'm going to show you that you can use if you want to make some whimsical coasters is to make a frame and snowflake tip technique. So in order to do that, you can use a book page or an ink blot background like what we created before with the Sharpies and the alcohol, or you can just use a solid colored piece of paper. And so the first thing you're going to do is to create your background. So just trace your paper around your coaster. And you'll do that on both what you want to be the background and what you want to be in the front. So I have I selected a green and an orange to really make this design pop. And so I traced circles on both of them, and I will cut these out and I will be right back. For the color that you want to be in your foreground, you want to be on top. You're going to take your circle and fold it in half as many times as you'd like. I recommend folding it at least twice into quarters, but you can do more or less depending upon what you want your design and your pattern to be. And so now that we've folded this, if you want to just create a frame, you would just cut out this top part here with some sort of pattern, whether that's just a circle, straight line, or if you want to make it to have flowers or ridges, you can do that as well. So I am going to just create a straight line here by cutting straight across and having it go flying off the screen. But we will come back to the frame in a minute. For the bottom, I want something to be in the middle of my coaster, so I am going to just create points to create sort of a star in the middle. But you can cut this design however you want, and it will look like how you cut it. If you've made snowflakes in the winter time, it has a similar effect. Okay, so I went ahead and I unfolded my orange pieces that I'm going to use to decorate my coaster. And I have this star here for the middle, and I have this frame to go around the outside. And you can create as many different things as you want and be as creative as you'd like as you do that. And so all we're going to do now is we're going to glue these pieces together. All right, I went ahead and I put some of the dishwasher safe Mod Podge into the jar in order to keep too much of the jar from drying out. And so what you're going to want to do is just coat the entire coaster using a paintbrush with your glue, and make sure you get a good coat on top of everything. And then you will put your background color down, and on top of that we will add the elements that we created. And this isn't the most exciting one that I've made. I just kept it simple to show you the technique. You can create ones that have flowers or hearts or whatever pattern you want them to have. And I'm coating the back of my background as well as coating the coaster, just to make sure that I really get enough on there for it to stick and to be as water resistant as possible when we get done. So I have coated the whole thing with the Mod Podge, and you just want to carefully put it on there, trying to get it as close as you can to being just on top of the edges of the circle and not have extra hanging off. Okay, I went ahead and I got all of my pieces stuck together, and now what we're going to do is we are going to just let this dry, and the Mod Podge wants to dry for about an hour between each coat, and when we get done with that, we will coat the entire thing using a nice thick coat of the dishwasher safe Mod Podge or other glue. Alright, so I will set this aside to dry, and I will show you technique number 3. Okay, the third technique I'm going to show you how to make today is a mosaic or a confetti type coaster, and this is a great way to use up paper scraps you have left over from making your other coasters. So just start by cutting up any paper that you have into itty bitty little pieces of different sizes and shapes, and you can see that I've already done this. And your next step is going to be to make a decision if you want to have a deliberate pattern on here, if you want to try to create a mosaic with an animal or just tiles, or if you just want to do kind of crazy random confetti. So once you've decided what you want it to be, you're going to put your glue or your Mod Podge onto your coaster. And with the other ones, I had you put the glue onto the back of the item you were placing, and that makes a lot of sense. It actually makes, but since we're doing a lot of just thick random work here with little pieces, I'm just going to put a really thick coat onto the coaster itself and hope that I get enough. So once I have finished this, I will be right back. Okay, I have finished coating my coaster, and you can see here while I'm holding it up close that I put a pretty thick coat on there. And you're going to want to work pretty quickly once you get that on there. And so I'm just going to create a confetti effect by taking all of my different pieces and just kind of pouring them on there loosely to create a random effect and placement. And once I get them all on there, I can shift it and move them around a little bit just to make sure that all of it is covered. And you can use your fingers to do that, or once you get down to smaller pieces, you might just want to use your paintbrush again. And that'll have an added benefit of making sure that all of the spaces that need to be covered are covered. Now I have this covered, but you can see that there's some empty spots around the sides. And so I'm going to take my paintbrush and just carefully move things and shift them around to make sure that all of the coaster is actually covered. And if you miss a spot at the first coating, you can always add more, and that is fine. We'll make up with it when we add the top coat of the Mod Podge. Okay, I went ahead and I covered the whole thing in confetti, as you can see here. And as I was going through, I made sure to get everything covered with the Mod Podge so that it'll stay down. And this is one that's a little bit trickier, and you might have to spend some more time patching up and working on as you go through. And so you can be careful with this one and be patient, but if you let it just dry, you'll have some really cool and interesting effects when you get done. All right, so we'll go ahead and let all of the coasters dry, And then when we get done with that, we will come back to add extra coats of Mod Podge on top. And if you, as I said, once again, if you don't have Mod Podge, you can use regular glue and it'll work out pretty well for you. All right, see you in a little bit. All right, everyone, I went ahead and I let my coasters dry and I put 2 coats on mine. So here is what this confetti one looks like, and here is what this one looks like. And I have a few more air bubbles that I'd like in this one, and to take care of those, you just want to push them down and make sure they don't happen as you're letting it dry. So we need to make sure that you let your glue or your Mod Podge, whatever you're using, dry for at least 1 hour or until it seems to be completely dry between each coat, and put 2 to 3 coats of the Mod Podge or glue on each side of the coaster. And the most important thing with this Mod Podge is that while it says it's dishwasher safe, you have to make sure you let it completely dry out for 28 days before you even try to put it in the dishwasher. And with the coasters that we're using, I don't know if I would trust it, but depending upon what you're using at home, you might want to risk it and see what happens. So I'll show you again what we've done, and I hope you'll share your results. I have created 4 gorgeous coasters that I like, and you can create ones that look just like this, or you can create something different. And I hope you'll share these, and I hope you'll keep logging your minutes and register your participation on Beanstack for our summer adventure program, and come in and visit us here at the library.